I'm going to go through a very short presentation, and then we'll take a look at one of the designs we are told to replicate this week, and then try to break it down. And if there's time, just walk through some of the ideas there. But the main thing I want you to focus on this session is the simple guides to typography and colors that I'm going to share with you. A little uh, introduction. My name is Marvel Fashion. I've been a designer for about 8 years now. I didn't exactly start as a product designer, I started as a graphic designer. So, uh, about 5 years ago, I started as a product designer after doing brand and graphics design for a while. So, yeah, I know one or two things about how you can scale positively in your design career, and I'm going to be sharing some of the experiences with you here. So, typography and colors. What does that mean? First of all, as a designer, the first you should know that one of the backbones of being a good designer is understanding typography and colors. These are not just words, these are not just elements I just add randomly to design. These are the elements that communicates whatever you design. That is why when you see a CAC poster and the poster of a new generation church, let's say CCI, there's always a different feel to it. And the truth is that if you go and use CCI colors and text for a CAC poster, it might not work. Oh. It might sound funny, but that's just the basics. The typography is always different, the colors is always a little bit different, and it just all depends sometimes to the person you are designing for, what you are designing, and the kind of emotions you want them to feel. So I'm going to give you some of the simple guides here to make sure that you are designing right and you are using typography and colors right. So yeah, so the first thing we're going to be talking about is I'm going to just give you like 5 simple guides to being what I call a type master. That means you handle your typography well and you are doing the right thing. So the first one is that when you are choosing your typography, I'll call them typefaces. I know some people call them fonts. If you want, you can read more about the difference between typography, typefaces, and fonts. I'll call them typefaces here. So when you're selecting your typefaces, it's the less the better. So I don't want you to end up in a situation where you select like 4 or 5 typefaces and it becomes very difficult to manage. So an example, as you can see in the presentation, is there's no point selecting 3 different typefaces for your design when you can just use 2 or 1, because using 3 means that you're going to probably have some accessibility issues. You're going to probably have some difficult time making sure that they complement each other. So 2 is the sweet spot, but using 1, 2 is enough. There are a lot of big brands that use just one typeface. You can go to their website and check it out. So the first one, keep it simple. 2 typefaces at most. In very very big design systems, use 3, but I'll recommend 2, and in most cases just use 1 because it's easier to manage. And then the second one is always make sure that your typography is accessible. The meaning of accessibility when it comes to type is it readable, is it legible, and is it accessible? Are the colors right? So the example on the left is don't make your typography too small that someone will be squinting and zooming the page to be able to read it. And don't, for example, if you are designing a very content heavy website, don't use fancy fonts that they will use on wedding invitations. Don't, please. Just use something people will be able to scan through, will be able to read easily. These kind of fonts have their places, and it's usually for a very small block of text. So always make it accessible. Make sure you put your readers in mind. Are they going to be reading very long text or very short text? Make it readable, make it legible, and make it accessible. The third one is that use complementing and contrasting typefaces. As funny as it may sound, the typefaces on the left, 1, 2, 3, are all different typefaces, and you have 3 of them. So if you use 3 different typefaces that looks very similar, what point are you trying to prove? Like it doesn't really make any sense or do anything different. So try to use typefaces that are complementary and are contrasting. You mostly find this in for example, like newspapers, like wedding invites or something, where the typeface for the title is usually very big and bold, And then typeface for the body is usually just something that can be easily scanned, that has a very good kerning, that has enough space. So make sure your typefaces complement each other. Don't select typefaces that looks too similar if you're using multiple, or if you want to keep it simple, like I said, just use one. So the example of the right is using like a sans serif typeface with a serif typeface. You can also read more on that if you want to learn more about fonts. So those complement each other. You can use like the one at the top for your title and the one below for your body text and all the other text, maybe for your buttons. So also when using designing typography, make sure there's always visual hierarchies. This is very, very important. If you are going to take anything away, this should be the number one thing you take away, because one of the greatest realizations you will quickly find when you are testing your product is that most people don't really read anything. Like if it's too much, most people won't read it. It's very, very common in this day and age that even a Twitter post that has more than three posts or three threads, most people will not read it. So make sure that you're able to give them the information they want to get as fast as possible. And that means you are playing with your colors, you are playing with your sizes. So that means a title that is bigger will catch more people's attention. Something that is much more subtle here will mean that that's not really an information that it's more or less a supplementary information. So don't do like the person on the left though, where the body is bigger than the title and the title has the same size with the subtitle. So use your visual hierarchies, play with size, play with colors. And then the last one is communicate with your typography. Colors, style, fonts matter. So there's a very popular meme that goes around. I couldn't really find that, so I recreated it here, where the same words written in different fonts and colors can give out different meanings. So example is I will always find you. It looks like something in a horror movie where someone is pursuing you. That's you today. I will find you. And then the second one looks much more subtle, looks much more lovely, looks much more romantic, and that's how you communicate with your type. So you can't expect a brand like LinkedIn that's for professionals to use a typeface like the one below. I can't expect a company like maybe Uber to use a typeface like the one above. So it's very, very contextual. Make sure you're always communicating with your typography. So yeah, before we move on to the next one, is there any question you need to ask about typography and typefaces? Any question? Any question? Elijah just left. Why now? Our emoji master. Do you have any question? Okay, I'll take that as a no, and then we can talk on the next one. So the next one is how to be simple guides to being a color master. So we've talked about typography, and I bet it with you if you can take these simple guides and just make sure you apply it at every point in your design, it's going to elevate your designs very much. I know some of us are probably much more experienced than than others here, and they can probably just do these things out of experience, and they don't really think about it when choosing their types, when choosing their colors and working with hierarchies. But if you're a very new designer and you're finding you're facing some issues in all this, just make sure that at every point in your design you are checking and rechecking that you're following these guides. So let's talk about colors. Color, like type, is also a communication tool. So in every design, there are two main things I will always find on any design: colors and type. If you don't find it, then it's not a design. That's just the facts. So the moment you understand how to, marry these two together, you are going to be churning out amazing work. So let's talk about how to be a color master. So the first rule, which is not a necessarily hard rule, it's more of like a soft rule to guide you, especially when you're new, is the 60-30-10 rule. I don't know if anybody has heard of this. It simply means that you should have a primary color that takes precedent. That when you take a look at your design, you can easily tell that, oh, okay, this is the primary color of this particular brand. There should be a secondary color and there should be an accent color. And the way you use these colors will you should use it in such a way that they are not always competing with each other. So when I take a look at your web page or your the mock-up of an iPhone application design, and I see that your primary color, your accent is even more than the primary color, then there's a problem somewhere. So always make sure that you follow the 60-30-10 rule. It might be more than three colors, it might be four colors. Just make sure that one color is very dominant. Or when I say dominant, it doesn't mean that half of the page is blue. It means that maybe your primary buttons it will always carry the primary color, and your big and bold text it always carries the primary color. So just make sure that you are using things like the secondary and accent colors sparingly, and you are trying to elevate and put out your primary color as much as possible. The second one is always make your text accessible. Sorry, your colors accessible. And this also has to do with text too, because you can adjust the colors of text. So the one on the left, it may look fine to you as a designer. I've seen many designs where they really want to go modern and they use this kind of very light gray on a gray background, and it looks very cool. It looks cool to you as a designer, but someone that has been using glasses for the last past 10 years will not appreciate that kind of design. So make sure you are using contrasting colors. If you're using a dark background, use a light color on it. If you're using a light background, use a dark color on it. On the left, you can see a very bright yellow and white. It doesn't match, it's not accessible. In fact, this will fail accessibility standards. And if you're working in the right environment, in the right company, it will not even go to production. The one on the left is much more accessible, white colors on a dark background, and then white color on a blue background. It's very easy to read, it's scannable, you don't have to strain your eyes. So learn to make your colors accessible. And the third one, which many newbies fall into, don't reinvent the wheel when it comes to colors, especially when you don't have to. In some cases, you can, but that's when you know what you're doing. Don't reinvent the wheel. And what I mean by that is very simple. So let's take a look at this example. So the one on the left, complete transaction is written, the complete transaction button is red, and then the cancel transaction is green. That's a backward way of designing, because most people will always tie a negative action to red. If you want to cancel something, they will tie it to the red, and if you want to confirm or complete something, they will tie it to green. So it doesn't matter if your brand color is red, find another way to make the design work without putting the positive action as green. So don't reinvent the wheel. Use known patterns. So like the one on the right, the positive action is green and the negative action is red. Colors communicates, and people have a perceived way of communicating colors. When it comes to professional platforms, you mostly find blue. That's why you see LinkedIn and the rest, they're always blue. When it comes to when you're designing for like a bakery or something, you probably see a little bit of pink because it's very colorful. People associate things with color. So don't reinvent the wheel. If you want to reinvent the wheel, make sure you know what you are doing. And then the last one, use color shades for better hierarchies. So we talked about text hierarchies earlier, right? So using color shades can also be used to show hierarchy in design. So this is an example. So we have four different shades of gray to white, and they are all applied here. So the title is very bold because that's what we really want people to read. So that means you can read the title without necessarily reading the body, but you still understand what the message you're trying to pass. So it's using white, and the body is a smaller text, and it's using a darker color of gray, and then the subtitle too. Even though it's the same size as the body text, it's much more subtle and it has a lower hierarchy. So that is how you can use colors to represent hierarchy. And yeah, those are the guides that I wrote that I'm going to share with you now. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to, I don't know if any one of you created this Microsoft design. I'm going to try to break it down and try to recreate some of them in Figma just to see how to work in Figma. Yeah, so this is Skype. This is Skype's homepage, and I chose it because it does it's a very good combination of type using types and colors to draw your attention and to tell a story. The kind of feeling this design is communicating just with the colors of the font and the brightness of the images, it's giving you that kind of happy vibe, like you are in cloud nine or something, and that's exactly what they wanted to represent here. And they wouldn't be able to do that without selecting the right colors and without selecting the right typography. So I'm just going to try to recreate this page, and you just talk through the design. I don't think there's really any deep meaning or learning. Just try to just follow me while I go through the workflow of recreating this design. And I'm trying as much as possible to make us finish by 8:30 so we can all get back to what we are doing. So first things first, let's break it down. So immediately you check this page, you already see that there's a lot of hierarchies here, and they're already drawing you in to some important pieces. The biggest set piece here is probably the text and the image. I'll say they are probably on the same hierarchy, but because it's the text, you probably read it first. So what they want you to see first is that Skype is 20, simple as that. And how did they do that? They made it colorful and they made it big. Like, I'm sure the designer doesn't even expect most people to read this small text here, or else the hierarchy will not be this small. So what they want you to know is that Skype is 20. Why are we telling you that Skype is 20? So we'll be able to download Skype. And those are, like, in this hero section, those are like the two main keys here. So the text has a very high hierarchy, and then this call to action has a better as also the next high hierarchy there. And then you can see this small one here. Open Skype in your browser. You might be wondering that why download Skype? Why is download Skype this big and then open Skype in your browser this small? It's very simple. From here, they're already communicating with you that the best experience for you as a Skype user is to download it natively on your computer. You can use it in the browser if you like, but we are not suggesting that. The best option we are giving you is download Skype, and that's what we want you to do. So, of course, you can always go and download into your browser, but just taking a very brief look at how the page is set up, you can already see where where emphasis are being made, the kind of message they want to pass across, even up to the images, up to the colors. It's all happy vibes. A child smiling with the family, the cake. It just makes it look good. Imagine they decided to use like a red background here. That would look very, very weird. Or use maybe pink background for a Microsoft design. It will look out of place. So make sure that your design is always it's always communicating not just with the words or the text, but with the colors and the type. So let's try to replicate this. So I'll create which frame should I use? Yeah, I think I'll use this. And then I don't think many of us will have a hard time recreating this. The biggest issues might have will be recreating this image, but I wouldn't want you to worry about that. But let's try to find a type that matches this. In fact, I think this is probably the time to show you guys that there's a way you can check the font a particular website is using. So if you are using Chrome, you can always just download the What Font plugin, and then once you click on it, oh, okay, it looks like it's using the built-in system fonts. That's weird. And then it's using, yeah, for your, I think this answers your question B. You can already see that even Microsoft themselves, they are using two different fonts in their designs. So I think for the big and the biggest one, they are using the uh, default system fonts, and then for the rest, they are using Segway UI. Okay, so let's try and do that. So I'm going to be recreating this side only. Let's try and find. I'm just going to give this a size of 80. Uh, Let me see the name of that again. So let's use Roboto. I think if I have Roboto on my laptop here, yeah, celebrating Sky 20 year journey. And there's also something else I want you to notice. It's the way this text is written and broken down. I want you to just take 10 minutes out of your time next week on Monday to read about how I've forgotten what they call it now. Is it something? I've forgotten the name they call it. It's when you try to break text down from one line to two lines. So it's very important when it comes to writing text. So just take a look at some of the best practices. There's a reason why Skype's 20-year journey is on the same line, and they didn't write celebrating Skype's 20 then year journey, having three lines of two words each. So there's a reason why it's written like this and not like this, or maybe not like this. So don't always depend on your the Figma's ability to break text by itself. So sometimes you have to make conscious decisions to say that okay, this particular word has to be the first, celebrating, and this next three words has to follow, and then Johnny has to stand on its own. So in some designs, you might find someone might do it like this, might not be the best way to write it. So people read it like celebrating Skype's 20-year journey. So you don't want them to read like that. So as a designer, be very sensitive about the fact that you are communicating with your design and you are leading people with your design. So try as much as possible to lead them the right way. So let's let's do this, and then I think you're probably using a bold, and then the spacing is a bit off. I think they probably play with the kerning too, and I'm not sure it's the exact same font, but in Figma you can already see things like the letter spacing. It's not just there for fun, no. There are sometimes you really need to play with the spacing and then the height too. So sometimes you really want to play with the height, because so it can give you much more when you're working with like auto layouts, which I'm sure you've done. Let's just write some random words here. So let's give this 40, and yeah. So sometimes you don't want your letter spacing to be too big. So here, let's just put maybe 48, maybe 64, and then have something like this. Like even without adding the colors, you can already see the hierarchy. You can already see what you want people to gravitate towards, uh, and then you just play with the functionalities you have on the right here and try to read about them. The two major ones you'll be using is the line height and the letter spacing. Try to read about that and try to see how other people use it. A very quick way that I work with line height is that your line height should be about at least 12 or 16 pixels more than your font size. So if your font size is 40 and your line height is also 40, it's going to look a bit condensed. So at least give it like a 12 pixels, 8 from 8 to 16 chart, it works well. The default is usually 1 pixel, I think. So that's why you have to really be conscious of how you choose these things. So read about the line height, read about the paragraph spacing, which we're not going to talk about here. And yeah, and the colors too. Let's just try to apply a gradient color here. I'm just going to select the color directly from the image, and this with this, yeah. And let's make this smaller. In fact, I think this should be smaller too. And let's reduce this to maybe 0%. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not going to go past this. I just really wanted to try to break down some of the ideas behind how and why this page was created in a certain way, and how why signing is not even the biggest hierarchy. For some people, in fact, if signing is the biggest hierarchy here, like no one will complain. But it just shows you the priority Microsoft is placing on downloading Skype instead of signing in on the browser. It's very visible here that the communication is that have the Skype app first on your computer, and then from there we can talk about signing in. Like to them, the browser is not the recommended experience. The Skype download is the recommended experience. And yeah, we are 3 minutes past our time already, but I'll try to share this PDF with in the channel so you can go through it again. And please feel free to ask questions as you go. But I really hope that I've been able to answer some of your questions. So the way primary, secondary, and accent color comes in design, it's not like on the top of your page you must first see primary color. So it's more about the usage. So let's take a look at this page, Microsoft's page. What do you think Microsoft's primary color is here? Taking a look at it with that and taking that 60-30-10 rule in theory, you will say white because white is the most used here, but that's not the case. The primary color here is blue. And how do you know that the primary color is blue? It's used for the most important things on the page. So when they want you to take an action, when they want to talk about the biggest thing, it's written in blue, or maybe a little bit of gradient added to it to give it more of a better look, a better look. So primary color is not always blue has to be at the top, oh, then black has to be below it. Oh. It can come anywhere. It's just how you use it. Don't use your accent colors for the most important things. It will be very weird to find Microsoft using. Let me see if Microsoft has an accent color. The accent color is probably they probably don't, or maybe they have like black or something. It would be weird for them to use black for the buttons because black is not Microsoft's primary color, it's blue. So it is not a matter of the arrangement, it's a matter of using it in the right places. Make sure that your primary color are reserved for the most important things on your page. Make sure your accent color, like the name says, accent, are reserved for supporting elements. Maybe there is a third subtitle to this that I want to add. Put in your accent color there. Let me try to see if we can find any place here. But it's not a matter of the arrangement, it's a matter of how you use it. So in some place you can even see that black comes higher. It comes first before you see the blue, before you see other colors. So it's how you use it, and it's on this way you can already see that for the most important things, what they want you to do, they want you to read about Skype numbers, they want you to read about subscription. Those are what the primary color is used for. Nothing more, nothing less. And then the black is used to augment it. So that's how it's used, though. It's not really about the arrangement top to bottom. It's about how and where it's used. So yeah, thank you all for joining the class. And if you have any questions about typography and colors, feel free to reach out to me on Slack. I'll be happy to answer you. And yeah, if you feel that other people can benefit from the questions you want to ask too, you can ask on the general design channel, and I will try to answer that too. But feel free to explore. Design is exploration. You don't find things unless you explore. Feel free to explore, practice over and over again, read about types, read about colors. It's much more than you think. It's a very huge tool in the hands of designers. So thank you all for joining, and yeah, let's end it here. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great night. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye bye.